Hail to the king, baby.
I was given a Steam key for this game 2 weeks prior to release for review.
Ad Infernum is a survival horror immersive sim where you unearth ancient rituals while stranded at an abandoned gas station in the middle of the desert. Or is it? I'm not so sure, because the Greek translation of Ad Infernum would be to hell. So I guess you just have to find out for yourself. Ad Infernum is an indie game developed by Inchbrify, also known as Dave Gadrovich, and his studio Glass Knuckle Games. But he also has a YouTube channel that goes by the name FETV. This is largely a solo game with some contributions by others for voice acting, script writing, and music. It's a small-scale survival horror immersive sim that surprisingly meshes the two design philosophies together beautifully, which means creative puzzle solving within the environment, multiple ways to accomplish goals, and an inventory system, and also save rooms and an item chest. The game has a very flashy intro that, even stated by the developer, might trigger some of those who hate yellow paint in games, but trust me, that's the last time this game holds your hand, and the tutorial/intro portion isn't very long. Early on, I grew a bit frustrated with the early enemies. It was like throwing myself against an impenetrable wall, because the enemies are impossible to kill, but they can be briefly stunned like Nemesis or Mr. X in the recent Resident Evil remakes. I had to take my own advice that I gave everyone in my Prey 2017 love letter. And that advice was to open my mind and play outside the box, because ultimately that is the only way you can play an immersive sim. Even if the game makes you kind of feel like you're trapped within the constraints of a survival horror game. But once I noticed you could climb a car and go to a place, then break a thing and do some other stuff and jump through a window and just stuff like that, everything just started to click. And when it all clicked together, my muscle memory playing MSims just kicked in, and I was having a hell of a time. The game had a complex nerve system, which sits just below your health bar, and the further depleted it becomes, the more vulnerable you are to seeing your flashlight turn red, have the game show your name on the screen telling you can't hide forever, which is just some crazy, trippy Inscription kind of like meta stuff, or countless different freaky ways to mess with the player's mind in that weird psychological way. I didn't see much of the nerve system my first time through, but in nightmare mode, it's almost impossible not to experience with the significant, lack of resources and harder to get your hands on pills and other things that can replenish your nerve. And I also experienced a bit more of it in New Game Plus. And in New Game Plus, you get new challenges, weapons, and items that you can carry over into your next playthrough in something like Resident Evil 5. And of course, you get to carry over your stats and ability upgrades and stuff that you get throughout the game when you do New Game Plus, similar to something like Prey 2017. The game has a pretty freaky atmosphere and general vibe that reminds me a bit of those indie horror games on itch where you're stuck in a restaurant or grocery store, except it's much more polished and fleshed out in more than one way. The game also reminds me a bit of Silent Hill with the very grungy feel, especially when you're losing your mind through the nerve system, and all of the imagery within the game is also pretty reminiscent. There's also even pretty weird things that come over your radio, kind of like Silent Hill, and it's also not much of a spoiler to say you have a friend talking to you over the radio throughout the game. And that's a pretty cool dynamic that reminds me of Bioshock or even Prey when your brother chimes in from time to time as you progress through the story. You have safe rooms and save stations with a wonderful track you've been hearing throughout the video called In Stillness, composed by Jack Gregory. And man, do you need that sense of calm and warmth at times as you're running around in the dark, accomplishing tasks and trying not to die. And, since I mentioned death, dying is actually a pretty important thing in Ad Infernum. It plays an important role in the game, possibly from a narrative standpoint, but definitely from a gameplay standpoint. The game tallies up your deaths in the corner, and with each death you go back to your last save, but you become a bit stronger with each death, seemingly to help you overcome your obstacle. You do eventually get more enemies that can be defeated, and so many more crazy things that come your way. The melee weapons are fun to use, especially the baseball bat or hand axe. I think the hammer is absolutely useless, by the way, at the very beginning. I think it's the most useless weapon. But hey, it's serviceable, right? The baseball bat is one of my favorites when you find that. I stuck with it for a long time, fully upgraded it. I mean, that thing's amazing. Well, almost fully upgraded it, but it packs a pretty good punch. The nail gun, pistol, and shotgun are all pretty solid, but the handguns being quite large on the screen and taking up quite a bit of it, especially when you aim down the sights, made it kind of weird that the double-barreled shotgun is such a small weapon in your right hand, and then when you aim down the sights, it takes up a lot of the space. It's kind of an odd choice. Otherwise, throwing things to distract enemies, figuring out the mystery, and fighting to survive is more than adequate. There are some funny moments though when you can climb on the cars like I stated before, but there's some cars that are shorter than others. So the tall cars, okay, I get not being able to be hit there, but when you get on the short cars, the enemy AI just kind of spazzes out, and they can't find you. Like, they know where you are, but then they just start like spazzing out, running around like a chicken with their head cut off. It also happens if you stand on the dumpsters out back. They'll do the same thing. Whereas if you get on the shelves inside the gas station, they will kill you because they can reach you. And it's a weird thing. It's probably just like a little bug or something, but yeah. Most of what's going on in the game has to do with alchemy and potentially some more spiritual things. The game is a relatively short adventure, but being mostly developed by one person, that makes sense. I put around 4 hours in my first blind playthrough, but it has plenty of replayability and even multiple endings. Definitely want to play it more than once, and for $10 on Steam, it's well worth it. I plan on giving away a copy of the game I bought with my own money to a lucky person in the comments, so just stop down below and put Ad Infernum in the comments to be entered to win. The winner will be announced in the comments, and I'll contact you wherever is best for you. So to wrap it up, I really enjoyed the game once it fully clicked. It's a really atmospheric survival horror immersive sim, and if that appeals to you, then I think you might find something to like here. Check the description for the Steam link and all of my socials, as well as where you can find the developer and follow them. And if you feel the need and really like what I'm doing here, the description will also have the link to my Patreon, so you can more directly support me and my future efforts. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you go and check out Ad Infernum for yourself, and I'll see you next time. And before I go, thank you, High Functioning Medium, and thank you, Osh, for all the support.